The holographic display erupted with violence, filling the United Earth Council chamber with a cascade of crimson and obsidian projections. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter of chaos, her uniform pristine despite the storm of data swirling around her. 17 minutes, she declared, her voice cutting through the stunned silence. That's all the time we'll have when they come. The council members shifted uncomfortably. Admiral Thomas Reginald Harper, a veteran of 3 interstellar conflicts, leaned forward, his cybernetic eye flickering with a mix of skepticism and barely contained irritation. Captain Rodriguez, this is your 3rd proposal this year, each one more outlandish than the last. Elena's presentation continued, unperturbed. Tactical maps of known space dissolved and reformed, showing potential invasion routes of the Zarkak's hegemony. Unlike previous alien encounters that had been mere territorial skirmishes, the Zarkaks represented something entirely different. A civilization that didn't just conquer, but completely eradicated. Her latest design materialized between them, a warship that looked more like a living organism than a traditional spacecraft. Organic-looking metallic structures seemed to pulse with an internal energy, quantum entanglement drives weaving through its frame like neural networks. It was beautiful and terrifying simultaneously. The Chimera isn't just a ship, Elena explained, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. It's a quantum-adaptive combat system that learns and evolves in real time. Traditional weapons become obsolete the moment they're fired. Admiral Harper scoffed. Theoretical nonsense. We need practical solutions, not science fiction fantasies. But Elena wasn't finished. With a series of rapid gestures, she pulled up classified intelligence reports, some so recent they were still marked with temporary encryption tags. Planetary destruction reports, communication logs, sensor data from destroyed human colonies told a stark story. The Zarkaks weren't just coming. They were methodically eliminating any potential resistance before their main invasion force arrived. Our current military doctrine is a suicide pact, she proclaimed. We're preparing to fight the last war, not the next one. The Chimera represents our only genuine chance of survival. Dr. Lydia Petrova, the Council's chief scientific advisor, studied the data with a critical eye. Her augmented neural implants processed information at speeds that would make most computers look sluggish. After several intense moments of analysis, she looked up, her expression unreadable. The computational requirements alone would be... She started. Impossible. Elena interrupted. That's exactly the point. The Zarkaks expect us to be predictable, to follow established technological paradigms. The Chimera defies those expectations at every level. The room temperature seemed to drop. Holographic displays flickered, revealing glimpses of planetary destructions, refugee streams, and the cold mathematical projections of human extinction. 17 minutes. 17 minutes was all the Zarkaks needed to eliminate an entire colonial system. Admiral Harper's cybernetic eye zoomed in on specific data points, searching for flaws in Elena's presentation. But there were none. Every projection, every calculation was meticulously sourced, cross-referenced, and validated. You're asking us to risk everything on a theoretical weapon, he said finally. Elena's response was immediate. No, I'm asking us to risk everything on the only weapon that gives us a chance. The Zarkaks have never encountered a truly adaptive human system. They understand our technology. They do not understand our capacity for impossible innovation. For a moment, the council chamber was perfectly silent. Decades of military conservatism battled against the desperate mathematics of survival. 17 minutes. 17 minutes between humanity and total extinction. Dr. Petrova was the first to speak. The quantum entanglement drive alone. If this works, it would revolutionize not just warfare, but our entire understanding of space-time manipulation. Admiral Harper said nothing, but his cybernetic eye had stopped scanning for inconsistencies. Now it was analyzing, truly analyzing, the potential of the Chimera. Elena Rodriguez stood her ground. This wasn't a pitch. This was humanity's last stand, disguised as a technical presentation. 17 minutes. That's all they had. And the chimera might just be their salvation. The lunar surface wasn't supposed to hide miracles, especially not miracles built by humanity's most brilliant outcasts. Dr. Akira Chen watched the quantum stabilization matrix pulse with an almost living rhythm. His fingers, covered in nano-adaptive interface gloves, traced holographic projections that would have earned him immediate dismissal from any legitimate research institution. 3 years ago, he'd been branded a lunatic for proposing that parallel universes could be weaponized. Now he was humanity's last hope. Structural integrity at 62%, announced Zara Okoi, her voice a perfect blend of scientific precision and barely contained excitement. The AI engineer had been court-martialed for creating an adaptive learning system deemed too dangerous by military standards. Here, in their hidden lunar shipyard, too dangerous was exactly what they needed. Marcus Rodriguez, no relation to Captain Elena Rodriguez, worked on what could only be described as living metal, materials that could reshape themselves, absorb energy, and adapt faster than any known technological system. He'd been expelled from every major research institution for theories that defied conventional material science. Their shipyard was a masterpiece of improvisation. Stolen quantum generators sat next to repurposed communication relays, experimental nanofabrication units cannibalizing themselves to create more complex systems. Every component was either stolen, modified beyond recognition, or created through mind-bending scientific workarounds. Incoming transmission. Zara's neural interface flickered. United Earth Security Force. They've triangulated our location. Akira didn't even look up. How long? 17 minutes, she responded, a bitter smile crossing her face, a number that had become their unofficial countdown to potential extinction. Marcus activated the shipyard's adaptive camouflage. The entire facility began to reconfigure, quantum-entangled materials shifting molecular structures to blend with the lunar landscape. What moments ago looked like a high-tech research facility now appeared to be nothing more than a standard geological survey station. But the chimera was taking shape, not just a ship, but a living system that defied every known principle of spacecraft design. Its hull wasn't constructed, it was grown. Quantum adaptive materials that could reshape themselves, absorb energy, learn from every interaction. A massive external scanner swept across their location. Standard military detection systems would see nothing unusual. But their team wasn't standard. They were the ones humanity had discarded, the theorists and innovators deemed too dangerous, too unpredictable. Captain Rodriguez is inbound, Zara announced. The team knew what that meant. Their final components were arriving, smuggled through a complex network of black market contacts, scientific grants mysteriously redirected, and pure human audacity. The approach of Elena's transport was anything but subtle. A modified lunar shuttle that looked like it had been cobbled together from a dozen different spacecraft, its drive signature deliberately scrambled to avoid standard tracking systems. As the shuttle landed, Marcus noticed something different in Elena's posture. She wasn't just bringing components. She was carrying something more. A set of classified intelligence reports that would change everything. "We have less time than we thought," Elena said, her first words as she entered the shipyard. No greetings, no pleasantries. Just pure, concentrated urgency. The reports told a terrifying story. The Zarkaks weren't just planning an invasion. They were methodically eliminating potential resistance, destroying communication networks, isolating human colonies. Each destruction was a calculated move in a larger strategic game. They're not just coming to conquer, Akira realized, studying the data. They're coming to completely eliminate any possibility of future resistance. The chimera wasn't just a weapon anymore. It was humanity's insurance policy. A last desperate attempt to prove that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its current technology, but in its capacity to reimagine what was possible. Zara's neural interface suddenly went into overdrive. Multiple detection sweeps. They're getting closer. Marcus activated the final phase of their adaptive camouflage. The entire shipyard began to reconfigure at a molecular level, quantum entanglement making their facility simultaneously present and not present. 17 minutes, Elena repeated, the number that had become their mantra. That's all we have to ensure humanity's survival. The chimera pulsed, not with the cold precision of a machine, but with something more, something that felt almost alive, almost human. The first wave hit like a quantum scalpel. New Shanghai colony disappeared in 17 minutes, not destroyed, erased. One moment, a thriving population of 3.2 million humans was going about their daily lives. The next moment, there was nothing. No debris, no radiation signature, no trace that 3.2 million souls had ever existed. Global communication networks collapsed faster than anyone could comprehend. Military command centers watched in horrified paralysis as colony after colony simply winked out of existence. The Zarkax didn't just attack. They surgically unmade human presence. Admiral Thomas Reginald Harper stared at the holographic displays, his cybernetic eye cycling through increasingly desperate tracking algorithms. Each attempted scan returned nothing. No weapon signatures, no energy discharges, just absolute, perfect deletion. 17 minutes, he whispered, remembering Captain Rodriguez's desperate presentation. In the United Earth Command Center, panic wasn't an option, but confusion reigned supreme. How do you defend against an enemy that doesn't just destroy, but completely eliminates your existence? Dr. Lydia Petrova's neural interfaces were working overtime. Quantum probability matrices, predictive algorithms, every computational system available was trying to understand the Zarkax methodology. But they were running into a fundamental problem. The attacks defied every known principle of warfare. It's not just destruction, she reported, her voice clinical despite the horror. It's systematic elimination. They're not conquering. They're performing a surgical removal of potential resistance. Outer colony worlds reported in rapid succession. Ganymede Research Station, the Mars-Europa Trade Corridor, the Neptune helium extraction platforms. Each report was shorter, more fragmented, until finally, silence. Complete, absolute silence. Military strategists argued in real-time communication channels. Evacuation, counterattack, surrender. Each option seemed more hopeless than the last. Admiral Harper knew something the others didn't. The classified reports from Captain Rodriguez's initial presentation weren't just theoretical presentations. They were precise predictions of exactly what was happening now. "Where is the chimera?" he demanded, accessing secure communication channels. The response came not from a human, but from an encrypted quantum transmission. Fragmented, adaptive, almost alive, preparing. Meanwhile, in their hidden lunar shipyard, Elena Rodriguez and her team watched the systematic elimination with a mixture of horror and clinical determination. The chimera wasn't just a weapon. It was humanity's last, most impossible hope. "They're using quantum entanglement as a weapon," Akira Chen muttered, his fingers dancing across adaptive interfaces, "not just as a theoretical concept. They're literally removing entire populations from space-time." Zara Okoi's neural systems were processing the attack patterns. It's more than deletion. It's complete quantum suppression. They're not just killing. They're preventing these populations from ever having existed. Marcus Rodriguez was studying something else. Between the destruction, he saw patterns. Microscopic variations in the quantum elimination process. Subtle inconsistencies that no one else would notice. "They're not perfect," he said quietly. "No system is perfect." Elena looked up, her eyes reflecting both the horror of destruction and the first glimpse of a potential counter-strategy. The Zarkax believed they had found the ultimate weapon of total elimination, but they had never encountered a species willing to reimagine the very fundamental rules of conflict. 17 minutes. That was all the time a Zarkax attack took to completely eliminate a human colony. 17 minutes was also exactly how long the chimera needed to be prepared. The impossible warship began to pulse, not with the cold precision of a machine, but with something more, something fundamentally, defiantly human. The launch sequence was nothing short of controlled chaos. Quantum entanglement drives screamed to life, their energy signatures defying every known law of physics. The chimera wasn't just a spacecraft. It was a living mathematical theorem, a technological impossibility given form and purpose. Structural integrity at quantum resonance, Zara Okoye announced, her voice a blend of scientific precision and barely contained excitement. Neural interfaces crackled with adaptive algorithms that were learning faster than any computer had ever learned before. Captain Elena Rodriguez gripped the adaptive command interface. It wasn't a traditional control system. It was a living neural network that responded to intention as much as input. The ship's systems weren't just connected to her. They were an extension of her consciousness. Dr. Akira Chen monitored the quantum stabilization matrices. "We're pushing beyond theoretical limitations," he muttered. "Every system is operating at 287% theoretical maximum efficiency." Marcus Rodriguez managed the ship's adaptive nano-armor. What appeared solid was actually a complex, living system of molecular structures that could reshape themselves instantaneously. Each molecule was a computational node, a potential weapon, a defensive mechanism. The lunar shipyard around them began to dissolve, not through destruction, but through quantum camouflage. One moment, a complex technological marvel existed. The next, it was nothing more than a mundane geological formation. "Zarkak's long-range sensors approaching," the ship's AI announced. But this wasn't a traditional AI. It was a quantum consciousness that had evolved during their development, part machine, part human creativity, part pure mathematical potential. "We're not just launching a ship," Elena said softly. "We're launching humanity's last hope." The chimera's quantum drive didn't just move through space. It moved through potential realities. Each movement was a complex mathematical dance, creating and destroying potential trajectories faster than any sensor could track. Zara's neural interfaces caught something extraordinary. The ship is generating its own probability field. We're not just avoiding detection. We're making detection impossible. Outside, the cold lunar landscape watched silently as something impossible happened. The chimera didn't launch so much as it emerged, flickering between states of existence, a quantum ghost that was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. Alien long-range sensors swept across the lunar region. They detected nothing, absolutely nothing. But something was coming. The ship's eye spoke, its voice a complex harmonic of multiple human voices. Preparing adaptive response protocols. Threat assessment. Total human extinction potential at 92.7%. Elena's response was immediate. Then we'll solve for the remaining 7.3%. The chimera's first movement was more than a trajectory. It was a statement. A declaration that humanity would not go quietly. That impossibility was just a failure of imagination. Quantum drives pulsed. Probability matrices rewrote themselves. The ship existed in multiple potential states simultaneously. 17 minutes was all the Zarkaks needed to destroy a human colony. The chimera was about to prove that 17 minutes was all humanity needed to change everything. The first engagement wasn't a battle. It was a quantum mathematical argument. The Zarkak's battle fleet approached with cold, calculated precision. Massive ships constructed from technologies that had systematically eliminated countless civilizations. Each vessel was a monument to technological superiority, weapon systems that could shatter planetary defenses in microseconds. The chimera appeared simultaneously in 17 different potential locations, not through traditional holographic deception, through actual quantum manipulation of spacetime. Initiating adaptive response protocol, the ship's AI announced. But it wasn't a machine's voice. It was a harmonious blend of Elena, Akira, Zara, and Marcus, their collective consciousness embedded into its core systems. The Zarkak sensors went mad. Tracking systems collapsed. Weapon targeting became a nightmare of impossible calculations. Each time they attempted to lock onto the Chimera, the ship existed in a state of quantum uncertainty. Akira Chen's quantum entanglement theories became living warfare. The ship didn't just avoid detection. It actively rewrote the mathematical probability of its own existence. "They're using a containment strategy," Marcus observed, analyzing the alien fleet's movements, designed to trap and eliminate through overwhelming force. Alina's response was a series of quantum calculations that would have been impossible for any traditional computer. "We're not going to avoid their strategy. We're going to use it against them." The Chimera's weapons weren't traditional energy weapons. They were adaptive mathematical disruption fields. Each shot was a complex algorithm that didn't just damage. It fundamentally rewrote the operational parameters of Zarkak's technology. One Zarkak's destroyer suddenly found its navigation systems reprogrammed. Instead of attacking, it began targeting its own fleet. Then another. Then another. "Quantum infection spreading," Zora reported, her neural interfaces tracking the mathematical cascade. "Their collective technological consciousness is becoming our weapon." The battle wasn't about destruction. It was about fundamental reimagination. The Zarkaks had encountered species that fought back. They had encountered species that tried to outsmart them. They had never encountered a species that could literally rewrite the mathematical foundations of conflict. 17 minutes. That was how long it typically took the Zarkaks to eliminate a civilization. The Chimera was demonstrating that 17 minutes was all humanity needed to completely transform the nature of warfare. Alien fleet commanders watched in horror as their most advanced systems turned against them. Probability matrices collapsed. Weapon systems became computational nightmares. The Chimera wasn't just fighting. It was arguing. A complex, living mathematical proof that challenged the very foundations of Zarkak's technological superiority. "We're not just defending," Alina said quietly. "We're redefining the entire concept of defense." The ship's AI responded, its voice a perfect blend of clinical precision and human determination. "Threat neutralization probability increasing. Humanity's survival probability recalculating." And in that moment of recalculation, everything changed. The moment of breakthrough came not with an explosion, but with a mathematical whisper. Dr. Akira Chen's quantum analysis systems detected something impossibly subtle. Within the Zarkak's technological network, there was a fundamental communication structure, a collective consciousness that ran deeper than any previously understood technological integration. "It's not just a network," he breathed, neural interfaces crackling with excitement. "It's a living mathematical ecosystem." Captain Alina Rodriguez watched as the Chimera's adaptive systems began to map something unprecedented. The Zarkaks weren't just a technological civilization. They were a single, massive, quantum-entangled organism. Every ship, every weapon, every system was connected through a deep, fundamental mathematical language. And that language had a weakness. Zara Okoi's adaptive AI systems began to decode the intricate patterns. "Their collective consciousness is their greatest strength," she reported, "and their most fundamental vulnerability." Marcus Rodriguez tracked the computational pathways. What the Zarkaks believed was a perfect, unified system was actually a complex network with microscopic inconsistencies. Each inconsistency was a potential point of complete systemic collapse. The Chimera wasn't just a warship anymore. It had become a quantum scalpel, capable of surgically dismantling an entire civilization's fundamental technological existence. "We're not going to destroy them," Alina realized. "We're going to mathematically invalidate their entire existence." The ship's AI, now a true hybrid of human creativity and computational precision, began to generate a sequence, not a weapon, not an attack, but a pure mathematical argument that would challenge the very foundations of Zarkak's existence. Each computational cycle was a complex probability matrix that rewrote the fundamental rules of their collective consciousness. The Chimera was performing computational surgery at a civilizational scale. Zarkak's fleet commanders watched in growing horror. Their most advanced tracking systems, their perfect technological integration, began to fracture. Not through traditional damage, but through a fundamental mathematical challenge to their entire existential framework. Probability of systemic collapse increasing, the Chimera's AI announced. But it wasn't a cold machine statement. It was a declaration of human potential. The quantum revelation wasn't about destruction. It was about proving that humanity's greatest weapon was its capacity to reimagine fundamental limitations. One by one, Zarkak systems began to fail. Not through physical damage, but through a mathematical argument so profound, so fundamentally challenging, that their entire collective consciousness began to unravel. 17 minutes, Alina whispered. The time it once took the Zarkaks to eliminate a human colony. Now, it was the time it took humanity to completely transform the nature of technological conflict. The universe watched, and everything changed. The aftermath was nothing like anyone expected. Diplomatic channels across known space erupted into chaos. The complete and total neutralization of the Zarkaks wasn't just a military victory. It was a fundamental reimagining of technological potential. Alien civilizations that had watched humanity with condescension now looked on with a mixture of terror and fascination. The Chimera wasn't just a weapon. It was proof that humanity's greatest strength was its capacity to transform the impossible into reality. The United Earth Council chamber, once a place of bureaucratic paralysis, now buzzed with a newfound energy. Admiral Thomas Reginald Harper stood before a holographic display showing the complete computational dismantling of the Zarkak civilization. They didn't just defeat an enemy, he explained to a gathering of alien diplomatic representatives. They fundamentally challenged the entire concept of technological warfare. Captain Alina Rodriguez stood to the side, her team beside her. Dr. Lydia Petrova's neural interfaces were working overtime, analyzing the computational cascade that had changed everything. Diplomatic offers began to pour in. The Cloraxian Collective offered unlimited research funding. The Quantum Concordance proposed joint technological development programs. The Stellar Confederation wanted exclusive rights to study the Chimera's adaptive systems. Alina knew each offer was a trap. Each represented an attempt to control, to limit, to contain the fundamental innovation that had saved humanity. "We're not for sale," she announced, her voice cutting through the diplomatic noise. Zara Okoye was already working on the next iteration. The Chimera had proven that technology was more than a tool. It was a living, adaptive system that could learn, grow, and fundamentally reimagine its own potential. Marcus Rodriguez analyzed the computational remnants of the Zarkak system. What they had destroyed wasn't just an enemy civilization. It was an entire paradigm of technological thinking. They believed in perfect integration, he explained to the gathered representatives. "We prove that true innovation comes from understanding imperfection." Dr. Akira Chen's quantum analysis systems continued to map the incredible computational cascade. The Chimera's victory wasn't about superior firepower. It was a mathematical argument, so profound that it had literally rewritten the rules of technological conflict. Alien representatives struggled to comprehend what had happened. How could a species they had considered marginal, primitive, have developed a method of conflict that completely invalidated every known principle of technological warfare? The answer was simple. Humanity didn't just think outside the box. They refused to acknowledge the box's existence. "We're not looking to conquer," Alina told the gathered representatives. "We're looking to understand, to explore, to push beyond every known limitation." The Chimera sat in orbital dock, no longer just a warship, but a symbol of humanity's potential. Its quantum drives pulsed with a subtle energy, a reminder that what was impossible today could become reality tomorrow. 17 minutes. That was all it had taken to change everything. The universe would never be the same again. The hidden research facility wasn't on any official map. Located in the outer reaches of the solar system, it represented humanity's next impossible dream. Captain Alina Rodriguez watched as the next generation of quantum adaptive systems took shape. The Chimera wasn't an endpoint. It was a beginning. Dr. Akira Chen's quantum matrices danced across holographic displays. "We're not just improving technology," he explained. "We're fundamentally reimagining what technology can be." Zara Okoi's adaptive AI systems were evolving faster than anyone could comprehend. Each computational cycle was a leap beyond previous understanding. The line between technological system and living consciousness blurred more with each passing moment. Marcus Rodriguez worked on materials that were more alive than mechanical, nano-adaptive structures that could think, learn, reshape themselves in real time. What once seemed like science fiction was becoming a fundamental approach to technological development. "We're not recovering from the Zarkax conflict," Elena declared. "We're preparing for the next challenge." The facility buzzed with a unique energy. This wasn't a military research center. It was a temple of human potential. Every system, every project challenged the fundamental limitations of what was possible. Alien diplomatic missions continued to probe, to investigate, to try and understand the fundamental breakthrough that had saved humanity. But they were always one step behind. Humanity's greatest weapon isn't technology. Dr. Lydia Petrova would often say, "It's our capacity to reimagine what's possible." The next generation of ships began to take shape, not weapons of war, but vessels of exploration. Quantum adaptive systems that could learn, grow, transform themselves in real time. Each design pushed beyond previous technological understanding. Admiral Thomas Reginald Harper oversaw the broader strategic implications. The Zarkax conflict had been more than a war. It was a fundamental reset of galactic power dynamics. "We're not just defending," he would explain to nervous political committees. "We're expanding the very concept of human potential." Elena looked at her team. They were no longer just researchers or military personnel. They were architects of a new understanding of technological potential. The Chimera sat in a nearby dock, not as a relic, but as a living testament to what humanity could achieve. Its quantum drives pulsed with a subtle energy, a reminder that today's impossibility was tomorrow's starting point. 17 minutes. That was all it had taken to change everything. And this was just the beginning. The next horizon wasn't about conquest. It was about exploration, about pushing beyond every known limitation, about proving that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't technology. It was human imagination.